So millions of people are walking around right now with what is essentially a slow, invisible leak right behind their biological drywall.
Yeah.
You walk past that wall every single day, the paint looks fine, the house seal feels totally fine.
Hmm.
But by the time you actually notice the pressure building up,
Mm.
I mean, the ceiling is already caving in.
Right. And in human terms, that ceiling caving in isn't just, a bit of water damage.
Yo.
It is a stroke, it's severe kidney disease, it's a catastrophic cardiovascular event. Um, we are looking at hypertension today, a condition that really earns its title as the silent killer because of that exact stealth mechanism you just described.
Yeah, which is why today's deep dive is it's so critical. We are unpacking a set of notes from a source called Natural Wellness at 25th Hour of a Day. And the goal here isn't just to list off statistics you already know.
Exactly. You're here because you want vital, actionable knowledge about your own biology.
Right. We're going to explore the actual mechanics of how high blood pressure functions, and then analyze a really fascinating, targeted botanical approach to managing it. Specifically, we'll be looking at 4 traditional herbal tea combinations outlined in the source.
And just to set our baseline right away, we aren't your doctors.
Definitely not.
We are just your guides through this material, kind of exploring that intersection of traditional wellness and human physiology.
So to really appreciate the botanical interventions we're going to talk about later, we first have to understand the environment we are trying to treat.
Right. The root of the problem.
Exactly. The source document lists the primary drivers of hypertension, and it's a lot. Excess dietary sodium, obesity, lack of physical activity, chronic stress, smoking, heavy alcohol use, and, poor sleep architecture.
Yeah.
Alongside family history and underlying issues like diabetes or kidney disease. And I look at that list and I don't see a disease. I see a Tuesday.
A Tuesday. Yeah, that's exactly what it reads like. It reads less like a medical pathology and more like an audit of modern civilization,
Right. You wake up exhausted from poor sleep. You're stressed about a deadline at work. You skip the gym. And you grab something highly processed and just incredibly salty for dinner.
Yeah, and you've just pulled half the triggers on that list in a single 24-hour period.
Exactly. But the source emphasizes that the mechanics here are what we really need to pay attention to because they happen completely under the radar.
Well, yeah, because we need to visualize the vascular system not just as static plumbing. It's a dynamic living network. Your blood vessels are lined with this really delicate layer of cells called the endothelium.
Cool.
And when you flood the system with excess sodium, basic osmosis dictates that your body holds onto excess water to dilute that salt.
Just to balance it out.
Exactly. So you are physically increasing the total volume of fluid that is constantly pushing against those endothelial walls.
So you have a much higher volume of liquid. But then you compound that with the other items on the list, right? Like chronic stress and poor sleep.
Oh, yeah.
And we know that triggers the sympathetic nervous system,
Yeah.
the fight or flight response.
And when that fight or flight response is constantly activated, your brain floods the system with stress hormones, things like cortisol and adrenaline.
Right.
Those hormones instruct the smooth muscle tissue that surrounds your blood vessels to constrict.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So now you don't just have an increased volume of fluid, you are forcing that higher volume through a significantly narrower, rigid pathway. Vascular resistance just skyrockets.
So going back to our drywall analogy, the pressure in the pipes is absolutely maxed out, but the person living in the house has literally no idea.
None.
I mean, the source text makes a huge point of highlighting that the vast majority of people with hypertension experience absolutely zero symptoms.
Because the human body is incredibly adept at compensating, right, up until it structurally fails.
Right.
The text does point out, though, that if warning signs do manage to break through, they usually manifest as frequent headaches, dizziness or lightheadedness, blurred vision, unexplained shortness of breath.
Fatigue, right.
Yeah, profound fatigue, chest discomfort, or heart palpitations.
But the danger of that symptom list is just how easily it can be dismissed. I mean, headache and fatigue. Most people just assume they need another cup of coffee or that they, stared at a screen way too long.
Which is exactly why the source is adamant that you cannot rely on how you feel to gauge your vascular health.
Right.
If a headache is accompanied by a bounding pulse or uncharacteristic dizziness, that is the physical pressure in your system reaching a threshold where the vessels in your brain or your inner ear are structurally struggling to cope.
Wow.
Checking your blood pressure regularly is really the only objective way to see through the drywall.
Okay, so if the underlying issue is too much physical pressure destroying the vascular network, how do we relieve that pressure without immediately jumping to heavy pharmaceuticals.
Right, the natural approach.
Yeah, which brings us to the first set of traditional remedies in the notes. The source details a botanical approach designed specifically to support circulation and address the physical plumbing side of the equation.
And the primary actors in this approach are two specific plants, hawthorn and hibiscus.
Let's break down how the source uses them, because the instructions are, well, they're surprisingly rigid.
Very specific.
Yeah. The first combination is called the hawthorn and hibiscus heart tonic tea. The notes state that hawthorn supports overall heart function and circulation, while hibiscus actively helps lower blood pressure.
Right.
To make this tonic, you are instructed to take 1 tablespoon of dried hawthorn berries and simmer them in 2 cups of water for a full 20 minutes.
A full 20.
Then, you remove it from the heat, add 1 teaspoon of dried hibiscus flowers, let it steep for 10 minutes, and drink 1 cup daily.
It's a very involved preparation, but it is biologically purposeful.
Well, here's where I want to challenge the text, or at least play devil's advocate for a second.
Okay, go for it.
Because immediately after that recipe, the source provides a second option called the hawthorn berry and hibiscus heart tonic. Same exact active ingredients, but the preparation is completely different.
Right.
You just take 1 tablespoon of hawthorn berries and 1 tablespoon of hibiscus flowers, throw them together in hot water, and let them steep for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And for this one, you drink it twice a day. I look at these two recipes and it just feels like a total contradiction, Why would I spend 20 minutes boiling berries on a stove when I can just steep them both in a mug for 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Do these two methods actually produce different chemical results?
Oh, absolutely. It's not a contradiction at all. It is honestly a masterclass in botanical extraction.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The text doesn't dive into the deep cellular chemistry, but if we look at the physical properties of what we are actually dealing with, the necessity of the two different methods becomes really obvious.
Okay, explain that.
You are dealing with a dense, woody, dried berry, the hawthorn, and an incredibly fragile, dried flower, the hibiscus.
So it's an issue of how hard you have to work to get the active compounds out of the plant material itself.
Exactly. Hawthorn berries contain these powerful flavonoid compounds that interact with the endothelial cells to promote vasodilation.
Widening the blood vessels.
Right, widening the vessels. But those compounds are locked inside a tough, fibrous matrix. To extract a therapeutic dose, you have to break down that cellular wall with sustained high heat.
Right.
That 20-minute simmer is called a decoction. It forcefully pulls out the functional material.
But if you just boiled the hibiscus flowers along with the berries for 20 minutes,
You can destroy them.
you just ruin the flowers.
You would thermally degrade the exact compounds you're trying to consume. Hibiscus is rich in anthocyanins. They're these water-soluble pigments that research suggests can actually mimic the effects of ACE inhibitors.
Which is a really common class of blood pressure medication, right?
Exactly. And because they are in a delicate flower, they extract super easily in hot water off the heat. So the first recipe is a heavy-duty, highly potent extraction. You do the hard work on the berries, protect the flowers at the end, and you get this dense tonic.
Okay.
And because it's so chemically heavy, the text recommends drinking it just once a day.
That makes perfect sense. So the second recipe, the quick 15-minute steep of both the tough berries and the fragile flowers in a mug, that's an infusion.
Exactly.
You aren't getting a massive heavy dose of the hawthorn because you aren't boiling it, but you are extracting just enough into the water to be useful.
Right. And because it is a lighter extraction, the source adjusts the dosage. You drink the infusion twice a day.
Got it.
You are basically trading the single heavy intervention of the decoction for a steady, continuous baseline of botanical support throughout your morning and afternoon.
I love how intentional that is.
Yeah.
You are utilizing the anthocyanins in the hibiscus and the flavonoids in the hawthorn to directly address the rigidity of the blood vessels.
Yeah.
But earlier, we talked about the nervous system. We noted that chronic stress and poor sleep lock the body into a sympathetic state. If we just chemically force the vessels to dilate with hawthorn, but the brain is still screaming panic signals.
We're only treating the symptom.
Right. The nervous system is just going to force those vessels right back into constriction.
Which is why fixing the plumbing is only half the battle. You have to address the neurological signals driving the pressure. This brings us to the second category of traditional remedies in our source. The stress relief teas.
Okay, the text outlines 2 specific evening blends for this.
Yeah.
The first pairs motherwort with linden blossom.
Yeah.
And the notes explain that linden blossom physically relaxes the blood vessels, while motherwort is utilized to support a steady, calm heartbeat. You steep 1 tablespoon of each in hot water for 10 to 15 minutes, and the text specifically directs you to drink this right before bedtime.
The targeting here is just brilliant. Linden blossom contains volatile oils and mucilage that have an antispasmodic effect on smooth muscle tissue.
Oh, and smooth muscle is what surrounds your blood vessels.
Exactly. So you are physically soothing the tension in the vascular walls.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, motherwort has this long history of use for cardiac anxiety. It interacts with the cardiovascular system to gently slow a racing, stress-induced pulse.
Wow. And the second stress relief blend swaps out the motherwort.
Mhm.
It combines linden blossom with holy basil, which is also widely known as tulsi.
Right?
The text states that holy basil helps reduce stress-related spikes in blood pressure. Again, steep for 10 to 15 minutes and drink 1 cup in the evening.
And the inclusion of holy basil introduces a completely different mechanism here. The source hints at this by calling it a stress reducer, but in traditional practices, holy basil is classified as an adaptogen.
We hear that buzzword adaptogen thrown around constantly in the wellness space. I feel like usually it's just slapped on expensive green powders.
Absolutely.
But what does it actually mean physiologically in the context of blood pressure?
Well, an adaptogen doesn't just make you feel subjectively calmer. It works systematically to buffer the body's response to stress. Physiologically, compounds in holy basil help modulate the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis.
The HPA.
Yes, the HPA axis. This is the system that tells your adrenal glands to dump cortisol into your bloodstream. By regulating that axis, holy basil actually helps blunt the chemical spikes of cortisol.
Okay, so less cortisol means.
Less systemic inflammation and less aggressive vasoconstriction.
So when the notes direct you to drink these specific blends in the evening or right before bed, it's not just about a cozy nighttime routine.
No, not at all.
It is a strategic biological intervention.
Yeah.
You're using linden to physically relax the vascular walls, motherwort to slow the heart rate, and holy basil to chemically intercept the cortisol signal.
You are basically taking the structural load off the cardiovascular system precisely when the body is trying to enter its critical recovery phase.
Right.
In healthy individuals, blood pressure naturally dips at night. In chronically stressed individuals, it often doesn't. These teas are designed to facilitate that necessary nocturnal dip.
Okay, we've covered the mechanics of the plumbing and the nervous system. We've looked at these highly targeted botanical interventions. And honestly, it sounds incredibly compelling.
It does.
It makes you want to immediately go out, buy pounds of hawthorn and holy basil, and just brew your way to perfect health. But let's be real for a second.
Yeah, reality check time.
Exactly. We need a reality check. Are these teas the ultimate fix for the modern hypertension epidemic?
The author of the source document is extremely clear on this point, and it's a disclaimer we absolutely have to amplify. Botanical remedies, no matter how chemically potent or historically vetted they are not magic erasers.
Right. Because relying on a mug of hawthorn and hibiscus tea to manage your blood pressure while consuming like 4,000 milligrams of sodium a day, sitting at a desk for 14 hours and sleeping 4 hours a night, that's like trying to bail water out of a sinking boat with a teacup while completely ignoring the gaping hole in the hull.
A very tiny teacup.
Right. You might feel like you're doing something, but the boat is still going down.
That is the perfect way to frame it. The teas are a supplement to a foundation, but they cannot replace the foundation. The source explicitly mandates that true management of hypertension starts with lifestyle engineering.
Right. The non-negotiables.
Yeah.
Regular cardiovascular exercise, which actively trains your endothelial cells to release their own nitric oxide.
Yes.
Radically reducing sodium intake to stop the osmotic fluid retention. Active stress management protocols. Prioritizing deep restorative sleep. And of course, heart-friendly, nutrient-dense nutrition. The teas are just the optimization layer on top of the sturdy functional foundation.
Furthermore, the text goes beyond lifestyle warnings and introduces a very strict medical disclaimer.
Oh, this is important.
Very important. These traditional herbs are not a replacement for prescribed pharmaceutical interventions. In fact, the source explicitly warns that herbs like hawthorn and hibiscus can interact dangerously with prescription blood pressure medications, heart rhythm medications, and blood thinners.
Which, if we think about the biology we just discussed, makes total sense. If hibiscus is naturally mimicking an ACE inhibitor to lower blood pressure, and you take it alongside an actual pharmaceutical ACE inhibitor prescribed by your doctor, I mean, you are stacking the mechanisms.
Yeah, you risk synergistic hypotension.
Wow.
You could drop your blood pressure so low so quickly that you induce a fainting spell or even deprive your brain of adequate oxygen. It is a dangerous compounding effect.
This really highlights a dangerous misconception in the wellness space.
Yeah.
People often equate natural with harmless.
Oh, constantly.
But if a plant has the chemical capability to fundamentally alter your vascular resistance and your heart rate, it demands the exact same respect and caution as a pill in a plastic bottle.
The source insists, and we echo this completely, that consulting a qualified healthcare provider before introducing these active botanical protocols into your routine is mandatory, especially if you are pregnant, nursing, or already under medical management for cardiovascular issues.
Absolutely. So let's synthesize everything we've extracted from these notes today. We started by mapping the unseen thread of hypertension, breaking down how the stressors of modern life biologically force our nervous systems to constrict our blood vessels.
Right, while a high-sodium diet floods them with excess fluid pressure.
We then analyze the traditional botanical interventions. We explore the pharmacology of hawthorn and hibiscus and how the specific heat extraction methods, the decoctions versus the infusions, are utilized to pull vasodilation-promoting compounds from tough berries and delicate flowers.
Then we looked at the neurological side of the equation, examining how evening blends of linden blossom, motherwort, and holy basil are used to soothe smooth muscle tissue and buffer the HPA axis against those cortisol spikes.
Facilitating that vital nighttime recovery.
Exactly. And we anchored all of this in the reality that botanical tools are supplementary. They cannot outwork chronic sleep deprivation or a heavily processed diet.
Because true wellness, as the text outlines, requires you to be an active, informed participant in your own physiological ecosystem. It means understanding the mechanisms behind the silent signs and addressing the structural integrity of your biological drywall long before the catastrophic failure happens.
It's about seeing the complete picture of your health. And, there is one final lingering implication from the source document that I think is really worth turning over in your mind long after we wrap up today.
What's that?
The text explicitly warns us about the immense chemical potency of these simple plants, how a daily cup of steeped hibiscus or holy basil holds enough power to actively alter your vascular resistance and even interact with heavy-duty pharmaceuticals.
Right. It's incredible to think about.
So, if every day plants and herbs possess that much systemic influence over our biology, how many other natural, seemingly benign ingredients in our daily diets are quietly recalibrating our internal chemistry, our stress responses, and our cellular health completely without our awareness?
Wow. That really reframes the entire concept of what we consider food versus medicine.
It does.
Our bodies aren't just rigid plumbing systems. They are highly reactive chemical ecosystems, responding to every single compound we introduce.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the silent killer and the traditional tools used to fight it. Stay curious, stay informed, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.